right, welcome to another edition of Reptile Fight Club. With me, as always, is Chuck Boland, my faithful co-host.
What's up, reptile friend?
Or maybe he's the host and I'm the co-host.
No, you're the host. I'm always co-host.
How you been, man?
Good. Just I've been really busy. Work's been really busy. I just picked up some Phelsuma barbonica from John Woodward, so that's super cool. I set them up a couple days ago, and I just bought another cage, so I'm already scheming of what I want to put in there. I'm trying to pump my brakes a little. I kind of want to get some ornata, some Phelsuma ornata. So yeah, I've got every gecko species now that I keep. I have eggs in the incubator for. So I was kind of like, yes, cool. That's a good, a good little sign. Enjoying that, and started just I've kind of dropped the Tracy together, and I'm just kind of letting them do their thing, and we're expecting a huge low pressure system to come through this weekend. So we'll see nice. If that starts it off. But yeah, man, just grinding away here. How about you? How was the trip and all?
I guess it's that time of year again, right? Starting to pair stuff up. I better get my act together. But yeah, things are good. I actually did throw my black-headed pythons together, so hopefully we'll get some westerns, get another shot at those. I've struck out a couple times, so this has got to be the year, or else I'm gonna be very disappointed. But yeah, things are good. Had a nice herp trip down to Arizona with the MP crew. So went with Owen and Rob and Keith McPeak and Tom, Rob's friend that works at Denver Zoo. So
yeah, I caught that. I caught the McPeak episode there. That was good.
Oh yeah.
That's good. Sounds like
it was a lot of fun. Yeah, we had a great time. Found some really
pictures.
Cool stuff. So
we'll have to get into that a little more.
We'll chat about that.
But let's not dwell.
For sure.
We have a guest tonight.
We've got a very special guest. Yeah, we got a good one for you today. Summer Grace Mitchell, thank you for being on here, and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. Very excited. Or thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Well, you're right too.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. We're all joined. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got to say, I've got two daughters. One's named Summer and one's named Grace. So
I have to say
you've got a good name. Yeah, putting both the girls together. Those are my youngest two daughters. But yeah, fun stuff.
Copycat.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you fit in herpetoculture?
Yeah. So my name is Summer. I have been into reptiles since I was a child, and I kind of have a small social media presence for my own animals. I mostly keep Morelia and semi-arboreal stuff like that, pythons mostly. And so if you want to check me out there, I go by Girl with Scales. I came up with that when I was 11, so I'm still a girl.
All right.
And then as my day job, I am a videographer, editor, salesperson, social media manager for Canova, formerly known as Jacob Book Reptiles. So
okay, so that's the business name, or why did he change it to Canova?
Well, he changed it actually just very recently.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, essentially just because his name is hard to say, hard to spell, people always having difficulties with that. And at this point, it's not just him. He has a whole staff and a facility. So he wanted to just legitimize the business as an entity rather than kind of him being the, everybody expecting that they're always going to be talking to Justin when that's not always the case. So
interesting.
Easier to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you're in the ball python
say
world,
it right.
Yeah, the ball python world, you're definitely going to know Justin Kabilka's name. So I'm surprised that that notoriety is carries a lot lot of weight. So he's done some amazing things. Well, maybe you've done some amazing things for him.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're
him.
a woman who wears many hats in that.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty successful company, and I've really only worked there in this current position since January. I've worked there for since 2 years ago is when I first kind of got connected with him. I used to clean snakes, but yeah, it's really only 4 people. So it's a pretty small business. So most people kind of do multiple things to, keep it all going. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
Okay. Well, I guess that's kind of leads us into our topic a bit. So today we're going to talk about, this was kind of a topic that was Casey Cannon mentioned, and he said you'd be great to have a great insight in this topic. And that's in regards to marketing. And if, as a reptile business, if it's important to market, or if you just kind of let the animals sell themselves kind of thing, or, the importance of marketing in the reptile business world, I guess. So since you're coming in, we'll pick one of or we'll flip the coin and figure out who gets to debate you today. And then we'll flip the coin again to see who, see which side you get, I guess. So. All right, Mr. Chuck, you feeling lucky today?
No, here's what's going to happen is you're going to flip the coin and you're going to call it in the air.
Oh, I'm going to call it this time.
Yeah, you're going to call it this time. And if you win or you lose, we'll see. This will be your luck, not my luck. I'm switching the tables here.
Okay, well, I'm not the luckiest guy either.
Well, if I lose consistently doing this method, then it is completely and 100% me, and there can be no doubt. But we got to try and switch this. Right. I got to figure this out.
Well, that's weird that I'm flipping my own coin, but all right, here we go.
Listen, I got a coin.
I'll call heads here, and it's heads. So, yep, that I guess that goes along with the whole deal. So, I'm gonna go ahead and jump in the debate here. So,
if you are you? Wow. All right. Sure. Okay.
If you'd like to moderate, Mr. Poland.
Sure.
All right. And then Summer, do you want to call it, or do you want me to call it in regards to who gets the topic?
Okay, so I'm bad at coin flips. So what do you mean?
Yeah.
If as bad as me.
If you win the coin toss, you get to pick which side you defend.
Okay.
And if you lose, then I get to pick which side I defend.
Okay, so I'll let you can call it.
Okay, here we go. Flipping my own coin again. All right, I'll go with heads again. And it's heads.
That's a double-headed coin.
Man, I just can't lose here. I've shown you plenty of times. It's the same coin. There's the tails. There's the heads. We're all legitimate.
That was awfully quick. That was pretty quick. I didn't see the whole thing.
All right. Well, I'm a proponent of low energy. Let the animals sell themselves. Like, I just want to produce good animals that I don't have to do a lot of work to sell. So maybe
you're on the less marketing side, or the non-necessity to market.
That's right.
Okay.
So I feel like, if you produce nice animals, they're kind of going to speak for themselves. So
I kind of feel that way as well, but
you're supposed to moderate.
Yeah, come on, you can't take sides.
I'm not a cheerleader.
All right. I'm Mills Lane now. Okay.
You got to be fair and impartial.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Which side are you? Who's going? You won the coin toss, Justin. So whoever wins the coin toss decides which side they want to take, and they get to decide whether they want to start or they want the other person to start. So what is it, Julian?
I'm gonna let Summer go first.
That's good of you, beating us two coin tosses in a row. Thank you for being the gentleman there.
All right. Well, let me get out my notes.
This girl came prepared. I like
it. She's gonna beat me up.
my first point is that, first of all, I think, of course, everybody should be striving to produce quality animals. I think that kind of goes without saying. Hopefully, anybody who is a breeder who loves reptiles, that is their goal.
Yeah.
But I think first and foremost, putting effort into your marketing and your presence and promoting your business helps you to stand apart from other people, because you're not the only snake guy on the block. And if everybody hopefully is focusing on producing quality animals, then having, a certain brand or vibe or look or feel can help you stand apart from the guy next to you at the Reptile Expo that has the same snakes on his table.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I get that. And I guess that's maybe why I moved into things that not a lot of people work with. So, the Antaresia, there's not very many Antaresia specialists at these reptile shows. So I figure, that's something. I actually kind of stopped breeding a lot of carpets because there was a ton being imported and there were a lot of breeders that had a lot of time to sell their animals, where I've got a full-time job and a big family. So I spend a lot of time doing other things besides reptiles. So I guess the effort and the time that I have allotted kind of goes more towards taking care of the animals and, that kind of thing. So I don't have a ton of time to market. So I figured I would find a niche or a niche, however you want to say it, nipper. I'm sorry, but we, so,
can you call it a nipper?
And we'll just call it a nipper,
my nipper
instead of what I mean? Instead of niche.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't resist.
No, that's a very worthy comment.
Yeah.
But so, if I have something that people don't generally have, then it, takes the pressure off of marketing. I think people can see that the animals are good quality, and, when they purchase from me, they can get good customer support and things like that. But I don't spend a lot of time marketing. Now, probably something I might increase a little bit. And I'm actually trying to get my youngest daughter to help me market. She helped me take pictures the other day and stuff like that. So that was kind of fun. So I guess if I had somebody to help me, it might be a little better. But for now, I just kind of chose to find a niche or a nipper that not very many people
Thank you.
Have. And then kind of let the animals speak for themselves or produce things that people want that aren't really available.
And I mean, I think that makes perfect sense. And if you are on, like I said, the number one priority should be the animals. So if you are doing this as like more of a side thing, or it's, I don't know, some people don't like the word hobby, but if it is just like a hobby, or your interest that you do when during the day you're at a university or doing something with science or whatever it is that you're doing, then I mean, you need to be focusing on the animals. But what I would say to that point is that when you do pick that nipper species, like you're saying, like not a lot of people work with the Antaresia. I went to Tinley recently and I saw so few, and the one that I did see, I was like so enthralled by it because I'd never seen one in person before.
Uh-huh. What was it? Can I ask?
It was an antel.
Yeah.
So to my point there is, by increasing your marketing and promoting your business and thereby the animals that you're producing, you're also promoting that passion you have for that species that is perhaps underappreciated, underrepresented in the hobby. And if it's a species that you think more people should be interested in or take notice of, then by doing marketing, branding, pushing yourself a little bit, you're just bringing attention to it and helping to preserve it, make it more popular, get people on the same bandwagon as you, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay. I mean, would you say though, Justin, that you do have a website, and that website, it does pretty much have the adventures and productions of Justin Julander on it, right?
It's true.
Is that kind of a way? I mean, I guess it's kind of where you draw the line of marketing, right?
Hey, whose side are you on here? What's going on here?
Just asking the questions.
No, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, it's hard, I guess, not to market if we're kind of considering anything any promotion or like, I mean, at a reptile show, I don't just sit there with my arms folded. I try to teach people and tell them how exciting and cool Antaresia are, because they're a python in a small package kind of thing. You don't have to clean up after a retic. So that's definitely true, and I agree that I kind of do some not really active, maybe some passive marketing, I guess, or, writing books. People are going to say, oh, this guy wrote a book on Antaresia, so maybe he knows something about Antaresia. So, that maybe help sell things.
Well, I think it's it's like exploit marketing. You kind of document your exploits and or you compile things and create data. I mean,
Yep. I guess I'm maybe mentally separating like true, marketing, getting out there, putting up ads or making things graphically interesting, or, having a cool, cool design, or like a logo or things like that, and I agree. I do some of that stuff, and I do think it helps for sure. But, I guess the other maybe side of that is, sometimes people get this flashy name or reputation or something, but it's same stuff. You might find better quality from somebody else, and you wonder, are they doing this to be a business, or are they doing this to really promote the animals? So it's, I think for to not cross that line, maybe I've shied away a little bit from marketing in that respect, but obviously I do some level of marketing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's this industry, hobby, community, whatever you want to call the reptile world, is interesting to me because I think a lot of people feel that way. I think they feel it's kind of like bands not like in the old days not wanting their songs to be like used in movies or something because they're like, oh, I'm selling out or whatever.
Commercial, yeah.
Right, yeah, but
yeah.
But I think, it is such a group of people who tend to be more introverted, tend to be a little strange. I mean, we relate to these creatures for a reason. You know what I mean? We all kind of, something about them speaks to us because they're misunderstood. A lot of people have, echo that sentiment. Like, I like that, I'm appreciating this creature that nobody else understands. And it's like, it feels like me or whatever. So I think there's an element to it that people feel like it's like selling out. Like, all I care about is the animals and none of this other stuff matters. This is all extra. And then as an extension of that, they start to get into their head that because they feel that way, that means that anybody who does care about that other stuff doesn't care about the animals. And that's all they care about. And I think that's a bit of a kind of just just an unfounded misconception. You know what I mean? Like you're not necessarily you, obviously, I'm just speaking generally, but I think people are inferring motivation where they really have no insight. You know what I mean? Like, because I've heard people like, for instance, like I'll use, I don't know if you're familiar, Garrett Hartle, like Reach Out Reptiles. He does the super dwarfs. He puts a lot of effort into his shipping boxes, right? So he doesn't use the normal shipping boxes that everybody else uses. He went and found a box company. He got all the specs so that they have like all the same like crush physics things going on, so it's all safe. But he got his branding on it. He does special little tins. Like it's like a whole experience when you open up the box. And like, yes, is that kind of unnecessary? Sure, it's a box. You're sending the snake. It's going to get there, whether it's a fancy box with fancy crumpled stuff in it or a regular box with paper in it. You know what I mean? But but by adding that extra element, I think it's just adding to the customer experience and making people feel like not only are you a good customer service representative in the fact that you are, communicating with them, like you were saying, like, if somebody comes up to you at a show and talks to you, they're going to be, they're going to have a good interaction. Hopefully you're going to be nice to them. You're going to educate them. So going beyond that, it's not just customer service, it's customer experience and making people feel like they are a part of something, a part of a brand. In the same way that when you buy an iPhone, people do unboxing videos of iPhones, even though it's just a metal phone or whatever, plastic phone, I don't even know what they're made of. But, people like that experience of getting something and feeling like, oh, this is my insert name of animal breeder here animal, not just something that could have gotten from anybody else.
Sure. Now, I guess I would see how that would be a really good business model. I guess that where I'm maybe taking issue with that line of thought is that it's an animal. You're not trying to get somebody to buy like an overpriced phone or things like that. I don't feel like people should be talked into getting an animal because of the experience, like, oh, I want to buy something, so I'm going to go to the person with the flashiest display or, the best box or things like that. I guess I'm more of the side of like talking people out of an animal unless they're really into it. And, it's hard because I think the reptile industry as a whole kind of convinces everybody that they need to be a breeder and they need to make money from selling their reptiles and things like that, and that's one of the reasons I kind of kept it as a hobby business. So I wouldn't need to make money from reptiles to feed my family. I don't care if I sell snakes, as long as they're not running me out of house and home. And, sometimes that's the motivation to put up ads, is when I starting to run out of room or something. But at the same time, I understand that, some people do that as a business, and I guess I can, see people want to have the best brand or a good experience with their brand. And I think as long as that goes along with quality animals, I don't have too much issue with it. But I think there's kind of a fine line between, peddling animals and doing it responsibly. So that's, one kind of other side of the coin issue that
I think I totally agree with you there. But I think what's the thing to kind of encapsulate that is, first, like I said in the beginning, the animal should always come first. And I think if you don't have quality animals, the whole facade falls away really quickly. You know what I mean? Because as soon as you get a bunch of people saying, oh, my animal was sick or wasn't what I purchased or had mite, you know what I mean? As soon as all that stuff starts getting in, I don't think it matters I don't think the package, so to speak, of not just the actual package, but the whole whatever you are, can ever substitute for the animals. So I think that, you may get away with it for a little bit, but ultimately that's going to all not sustain itself if your animals don't live up to what you're promising people. And I also think that most people that I see who have a more flashy presentation, or, they put more money and care and time and energy into that sort of thing, they're not selling like cheap animals that anybody's going to be able to afford or be interested in. Most people that I think kind of get the animals aren't throwaway, but people kind of see them as throwaway. You know what I mean? Like people who are getting, that's cheaper animals. And the people that are doing the high-end marketing kind of stuff usually aren't even producing those kind of animals, or if they are, they're wholesaling them or something. You know what I mean? Like they're not, that's not their focus or their main source of business.
Yeah. I do think there are a couple of exceptions to that. And unfortunately, they do persist far longer than they should. I mean, there's some that are still, going on, even though how many people have had negative experiences. And I think it's because they have access to less available animals. If people want an animal, they're often going to take a risk. If it's a rare or hard to acquire animal, they'll maybe do a deal with the devil and buy something from an importer that has a shitty reputation.
I think we see people who stay the person because they can get those animals, and whether they do it very well or don't do it very well, they get those animals. So they're always that person, you know what I mean? But they're always marked. You know what I mean? If you don't do it well, you're always marked by that. It's just that, if you're able to get animals in that nobody else gets in because you're importing and you're that person, then that's who people will ultimately go to, buyer beware. But I would say once you're marked, it's, and I mean, I guess everybody gets, new people get hoodwinked. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is, right? You don't know. And then you usually buy, and then you do your research, and then you're like, oh crap. Right.
Well, I mean, Hank Molt did persist for quite a while because he was, getting things illegally and had things that nobody else could get. But,
right.
Yeah. Sorry.
You were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say,
that's my job.
I agree. And I think that's more prevalent in the importation side of things, where it's animals that aren't readily bred in captivity. And so like you're saying, there's just not any other, it's like, if you want that animal, it's this one or nothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to that same point, I see a lot of those types of animals, and maybe not necessarily super rare ones, but like imports and stuff like that are like about, they're going to die in 48 hours, is kind of coming from people who put zero effort into anything they're doing, clearly. And somehow they still sell, but it's because they're cheap and people don't know any better. And they just look at the price tag and they say, okay, this is, this is the cheapest one here, so I'm going to get that. It's a great deal. And then, 10 minutes later, it's dead. But I think if you're spending enough money to, like, for instance, we just did a total rebrand for the business that I work for. And we went from Drake Milk Reptiles to Canova, and it wasn't cheap. You know what I mean? Like it's a, when you do it with a professional company and things like that, I mean, there's a lot of costs involved. And if somebody's willing to put that much finance into something and effort and time and all of that, I think the percentage of overlap between like sketchy people and people who put that much effort into something is, I'm sure it's there, but I think it's slim. You know what I mean? Like you might get a couple of creeps that are just super creeps, but I think most creeps are putting in as little effort as possible. So
that's true.
Low energy creeps.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing. I mean, I guess I look at kind of that. I'm the guy who has all the rare stuff. I'm the only guy who can get stuff out of this place or that place. You have to come to me kind of thing. I guess I see that as somewhat as marketing. And then a lot of times they'll have flowery descriptions for their animals, and I guess I kind of count that in the marketing category. So there are some forms of slimy marketing that really,
for sure.
turn me off for sure.
That's their brand, is that they have the whole, they have the stuff nobody else has.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess that's okay if they're doing it responsibly and not, selling people sick animals and things like that. So, that's just something to be cautious about, not all glittery and flowery descriptions are actual or true.
No, for sure. Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, that's always I guess, like, it's tough because there is that side of it. You know what I mean? Like anybody can make a claim. Anybody can say, I have the best blank in the world. You know what I mean? But you have to be able to back up what you're saying. And so I think as long as you're backing up what you're saying, what you're presenting, then I don't see the issue. And I think people, because you can say anything you want, I think people tend to assume that it's all just BS. You know what I mean? Like some people see any kind of marketing as like total just used car salesman type stuff, but I don't think it always is. And I think assuming that it is without, doing your due diligence and looking, but I think that's a lesson too, that anybody should be looking into everything. Like, cause like you're saying, there's two sides to everything, and somebody may have the best animals in the world. You just got to look for them. You know what I mean? And like, there's an element of validity to that too. So.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess that's another thing, with the over or the, a large amount of marketing around selling animals is, I always kind of wonder, well, how much extra am I paying for all this glitz and glamour? Am I paying through, is it going to be more expensive because I'm paying for a special, custom shipping box and that's been branded with their logo and things like that. So I'd almost rather find somebody who's kind of quietly doing it in their basement that's producing quality animals. Then I meet somebody who's that I maybe align more with. I guess that's something I worry about, is if I'm paying extra for all that marketing.
Well, I think yes and no. I know from my experience with where I work that the snakes cost what they cost. You know what I mean? And the reason that we can afford to do that kind of thing, more extensive promotional stuff like making posters and selling merch and having all that stuff available, is because the animals sell really well and they're high quality animals. So they sell at a high price. Like that comes first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that generally will be the case, because if somebody has a lot of money to invest in a bunch of marketing, but again, they're not producing the quality animals, it's kind of like a cardboard like cutout. You know what I mean? Like there's this facade of like, oh, I'm this great business, but then it's like, you're just me in my bedroom with like one rack of snakes, and like I just am good at graphics, so I made myself a cool logo and like have, you know what I mean? Like you can fake
that would be me if I marketed right there.
Yeah, you're like you can make like the most. Yeah, well, go for it. Pull the wool over a couple people's eyes and get a nice Christmas present. But no, so I think, like I said, all I can speak for is my experience. But
sure,
the animals and the success of the business came first, but I do think that even if you don't have a bunch of money to spend on like insane marketing stuff, I think there's the other point, which is just having a professional presentation, which I'm sure like you do, Dustin, like you're a nice clean cut guy. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure your booth and stuff is like not dirty. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure you clean off your acrylic or whatever, but like having a good presentation, taking care in the way that you speak to people and the way that you present your animals, all of that stuff, I think is step one. Like, you know what I mean? Like every single person who breeds reptiles or imports reptiles or sells reptiles should be doing that at a bare minimum. Because if you can't put the effort into, with whatever money you have or whatever money you don't have, to make whatever you're doing presented as professionally as possible, then I don't believe that you are putting any effort into the animals that you have. You know what I mean? Like if you can't Windex an acrylic at a reptile show, then are you cleaning your cages? Like, are your snakes like sitting in poop constantly? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like having that level of polish, whether it's at a high level or a small level, it allows people to trust that you put that same level of care and attention to detail into your animals. So, and I mean, I'm sure you're not arguing for like people being like gross, but I just think that there's like, there's an element of marketing that everybody should be doing, which is that they should be presenting themselves well and the animals well.
Oh, I fully agree. Yeah, it's really frustrating to see, gross displays, like you said.
Right.
Yeah.
And on the internet too. I mean, like, not everybody has to be a like graphic designer or like world-renowned writer or something, but like write a full sentence when you're talking to people. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Don't be like
spelled and punctuated correctly.
Right.
Is that
like
what
take if you're taking yourself seriously. If you're not, then by all means don't.
Yeah.
But if you're taking yourself seriously and you want other people to take you seriously, then you need to put that effort in to present yourself seriously.
Yeah, that's I guess that basic level of maybe even passive marketing that I think we all agree that is definitely necessary and important. You want to speak in I guess coherently and try to present yourself well so people see that you know what you're doing and things like that. So
right.
I agree fully. So one other potential, I guess, negative side of high levels of marketing could be this kind of more trend towards getting animals because they're popular for like, social media likes and things like that, buying an expensive snake because, I'm the only guy on the block with this and it cost me 10 grand or whatever, we've kind of had this discussion on the podcast before, but, that's maybe another side of it where you're selling more of an image than, and this kind of goes back to one of my earlier thoughts of, we shouldn't be selling images. We should be selling, reptiles because they're cool to people who appreciate them because they're cool,
Right.
So yeah, go ahead.
No, I know what I know where you're getting at, and I agree, and I think that there is a level of that I think is honestly just social media in general, and I think in any interest in the world, you're going to find that. And it's not always going to be a Boelen's python or whatever. It's going to be whatever it is in that specific interest group that is the it thing to have that makes you seem successful or cool or rich or whatever. But I also think that gets a little exaggerated at times because while there are people for sure who do that, I can think of one in particular, but like I also, straight up, my boss has Bolins. He's got a pair. And I'm 100% sure that people have said that and are still saying that about him, that he got them for social media. But the funny thing is, he never posts them on social media. He did one video when he got them. And every time they've ever been posted on social media since then, I did it. Because I was like, why are we never posting pictures of these? They're cool. You know what I mean? Like, they're awesome snakes. But he literally, he's had them for 2 years, and there's maybe 4 posts of them total, including the very first video he did where he showed that he got them. And then that was it. Like, everything else is me. And that's because I love Morelia. I mean, like, I'm a Australian, Indonesian kind of python person. So I'm like super stoked on them. And he is too, but I did that more than he did because I was like, I wanted to show off the Bolin's pythons. I was like, I get to work with a Bolin's python. I'm taking a picture of it. I'm going to go look at it out in the sun and see the rainbow. You know what I mean? Like, so there are for sure, that is an element to it. But I think that the majority of people who keep, you know, who do the high level of marketing stuff. And it's hard because there's so many levels we could be talking about. There's YouTubers that are doing a lot of promotion on their YouTube channels and for clickbait and things like that. And then, you know, there's people who are trying to sell things. Like you said, there's people who are trying to import. There's different facets of this. So we could be talking about different things and different approaches. But I would say that if you're a reptile breeder who is focusing on a specific species and you're promoting that species, and really you work with high quality projects in that species, and you have been successful, so you have the money to have professional branding and professional packaging and professional merchandise and several tables at a reptile show, and everything's big and pretty and clean and a nice facility, then those typically aren't the people who are buying a bunch of random species and keeping them because they're really focused. Like we have at my facility, I say my facility, I wish it was the facility I work at. There's
it's a nice facility.
Thousands of ball pythons, and then there's like 5 other snakes. You know what I mean? It's and my boss loves all snakes. He started out not even doing ball pythons. He did colubrids, he had venomous, like he's done a bunch of stuff. But he found the ball pythons and he was like, well, if I'm gonna do this as a business, then I need to he got interested in the genes, you know what I mean? But he's like, I need to focus on this, you know what I mean? Like I don't need to be distracted with you know, like kind of like jack of all trades, master of none, like get rid of all the rest of it and really focus on this one thing. And so that's kind of what he's done. So it wasn't even really until recently that he started getting the other species. He's got file snakes, which no one's ever even seen. He's never even posted
which
them.
Species does he have?
Justin's like, oh really?
Cape something.
Oh, Cape file snakes. So like the not the water ones, the land ones.
No, they're cool though. And I've seen people use those on Instagram, like under purple lights and like make them look all pretty, but we don't do that. And he's got a retic that no one's ever seen. So I think that, I just feel like there's a little bit of hyperbolization that goes into some of it too. Like people start kind of nagging on people on,
it's
unwarranted.
Definitely tough, right? Because there's so it's all intention, right? And what's wrong with somebody who's successful and enjoys reptiles and has a YouTube presence getting a Bolin's python or a pair or 2 pairs or whatever? Nothing, absolutely nothing. But the ridicule comes when they end up on, they're doing that just to show off because they're so expensive. And I get, but then there's also those people who legitimately get one so they can show it off.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's, there is, we social media is kind of an attention whorish, self-fulfilling, thing in it for some people. Some people need that attention. And I think it is unfortunate, definitely, that it's easy to paint with a broad brush.
For sure. And I think there's also an element of, this is kind of going on a tangent, it's not really related to the topic, but like there's an element of
tangents here too.
There's an element of I would say like pet tube in general. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but that I feel like is a dangerous place, not to offend anybody, but because it's kind of like you can, like, I have pet snakes, you know what I mean? None of my snakes are really big enough or old enough to breed right now. I've got like a dozen snakes in my house. They're all pets, really. there's only so much that I can say about them. You know what I mean? At a certain point, you have to keep getting more to have more to talk about. So it becomes this cycle of, I've got to get a new pet to have something new to talk about, which that's where I feel like you get into, especially like getting, especially if people are successful and have enough money to spend, they get cool species that maybe are expensive because they're hard to take care of and nobody can breed them. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That then they can't take care of it well, or, people kind of get a little bit salty because it's like a species that people really want to work with, but most people can't afford. And then this person who really doesn't know what they're doing gets it. You know what I mean? There's so many layers to it, but there's for sure people who get into things for the wrong reasons, who like Justin was saying, who promote themselves disingenuously. And I think the thing we can't do is assume that everybody is that way. You know what I mean? Like we've got to assume that most people are good, and until proven otherwise, then then we can start saying whatever we need to say to get that stopped. But so I actually have one point that I think I feel really strongly about.
Sure.
And I'm curious how you guys will find this take. So one of the biggest reasons that I think it is not just okay for somebody to be like this, but I think it is necessary for there to be businesses in the reptile world that are heavily focused on their brand, their presentation, their marketing, their facilities, all of that stuff, is the legitimization of the business, of the hobby, of the industry. Kind of like I was saying earlier, a lot of us are weirdos in one way or another. You're like a weird nerd, or you're like a non-mainstream person, like alternative lifestyle. You know what I mean? There's different ways to be weird, but most of us are weird in some way.
In some way,
and exactly. And that's great. But the problem is we hurt ourselves by being so accepting of our weirdness and so willing to be weird.
Yeah.
Because we separate ourselves from the mainstream. Okay. And again, that's what some people want. They're like, F that. I don't want to be mainstream. I want to be, I want to be off to the side doing my own thing. Yeah. That's great. The problem is that we have people that are fighting against us to not let us have these animals and not let us work with the things that we love. Legislations are happening all over the country all the time, trying to ban things or make it harder to do what we're trying to do. And the less mainstream we are, the more weird kid in the corner we are, the harder it is for us to fight against that. The more that we have people who look legit, who look like, hey, I'm a normal person making a good living. I have employees. If you shut me down, all these people are going to be out of a job. Like, this is a legitimate business. I'm not some biker in my basement, like with, I'm not like a snake puppy mill. You know what I mean? Like, the more that we have people like that, who have that really professional presentation, who are appealing to a broader audience and are able to get their message out on YouTube, on social media, on things like that, bring more people in. First of all, it makes the community bigger. It grows the reptile community. And then, like I said, it makes it more legit, so that when people look at us, they're not thinking it's just a bunch of freaks. I mean, sorry, that sounds rude, but yeah, I mean, I think it's really important that we think about that and about how we can protect ourselves by doing more and by kind of looking outside of our own little box of what we feel, we feel like, oh, well, we all understand each other, so that's all that matters. We need other people to understand us too.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a hit that I can't duck. I mean, that's very important. And I mean, you got me. What can I say? So yeah, I completely agree that, there does need to be some professionalism within the hobby. If we don't, then yeah, we're just like basement guys. And then, we can get steamrolled by legislation.
Yeah.
I think, just if I could butt in as the non-partisan commentator here, I think that the cool thing about the hobby is it does bring people in who maybe feel marginalized in society. They feel like they're fringe, and we have this great thing in reptiles that kind of brings people from all walks of life together. I've said
100%.
this, I can't even tell you how many times. And I think that one of the that for me, what I think is everybody should be able to be who they want to be, whether they, have big gauged earrings and a lot of face piercings and tons of tattoos. That doesn't bother me. What we need to be able to do is bridge that gap with people who don't understand us and are able to. So those of us who maybe affiliate more mainstream, and I would consider myself somebody who can vacillate between almost any group of people.
Toucans on your shirt, macaws.
Dude, we have Aloha Friday at my work, so every Friday we wear like a Hawaiian themed or like a crazy shirt. So that's why I have the shirt on. So every Friday you can catch me.
Listen, no judgment. I love
it. It's fun. It's super fun. My coworker has an awesome like Hulk Hogan, or no, it's a Macho Man. It's a Macho Man button down. It's awesome. I was like, you win. So anyway, I just, I think it's important that those of us who can help bridge that gap, and we're talking about stuff that's kind of crap because what's the normal, what's the average, is that fair, is that but perception is reality and how we're perceived. And so to your point, having legitimate businesses and those people who can bridge that gap, so people don't, people can't just say, it's a bunch of weird people who do weird stuff, and I don't get that at all. That's not the case. That's not the case at all. So I think you're 100% on point there. I just think it's,
Oh, well, yeah. And I completely agree with you. I mean, I think the great thing about the reptile world, like you said, is that so many people are connected by these animals who in other ways would be I would have never talked to them. You know what I mean?
We wouldn't hang out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's great. And anybody who is anybody should be allowed to be themselves and love the animals, and we can connect in the way that we connect. And if we don't connect in other ways, that's great. If you want to ride a Harley, go for it. If I would like to be a hermit and stay in my house 24/7, I'm staying here. But like you're saying, I think that we need to have the representation of we need to have the representation of the weird nerd kid. We need to have the representation of the burly guy with the tattoos. And we need to have the representation of the quote unquote normal mainstream, fits in with the crowd person. We need to have it all so that anybody feels comfortable coming in, because the reality is that even though we do become connected with everybody, it's kind of like lunch tables. You know what I mean? Like you gravitate towards people that outwardly you feel like are your people. And then once you start talking to them, you might realize they suck, or you might realize, hey, those band geeks over there, they're the real cool ones. But we need to be reaching out and trying to bring more people in. And the way to do that is by having representation for things that people are used to. People are used to Apple and brands that are professional and sleek and modern, and they have good packaging, and they have good fancy slogans, and they have good, all these different things. And so that if that feels familiar to people, they're going to be like, hey, what's that about? I didn't know. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like it's just opening the doors for so much opportunity to make contact with people who wouldn't necessarily know that this was a thing.
Well, isn't it like kind of like packaging something that's foreign to people in a way that they understand it, right? People understand marketing. They understand what that is. And if you can market to people, or you can advertise to people so that they understand or get something that they don't participate or wouldn't normally participate in a way that is, appealing to them, palatable to them, then you're potentially making some inroads, right? Is that kind of what you're kind of?
Yeah, you said it way better than I. That was exactly what I was trying to say. Yeah,
Chuck, quit. You keep taking her side. Come on, man.
I'm not taking anyone's side.
I agree that we definitely need that kind of representation. Maybe the other side of that, the only kind of chance I have at maybe getting a little swing in here is, as long as we're not, being too snooty, I guess if you've got this brand and you're like, well, I don't want that person representing my brand, you don't want to be like whatever those clothes companies are that only make size, 0 through 2 or whatever. And they only cater to model types or whatever. That bothers me. Right. And I think, you might see that in the reptile hobby. I had, talking with some friends, they were, interacting. Well, they weren't interacting with this major YouTuber guy. He was visiting with some of their friends, and it was like they didn't even exist. I mean, they were just there. They were in the same car with this guy, and he didn't even like say, "Hey guys, how are you? What's going on with you?" He was just like completely focused on the 2 guys that he was interviewing, and he didn't want to deal with anybody else. Getting that attitude of I'm better than other people because I have this brand or I have this snake or I make these cool snakes. That's where it kind of goes off the rails a little bit, I think. And
100%.
I mean, the thing that I hate most about a lot of this branding stuff is the clickbait, and that's mainly with the YouTube stuff. And it drives me nuts.
And the
algorithms and stuff kind of demand that to some extent.
My view on the clickbait is because every time we put out a video, we sit there and think about what is our title, what is our thumbnail, like how are we going to get people to watch this? But my thing, and luckily it's also my boss's thing too, is that like we won't present the animals negatively. You know what I mean? Like we'll say like, this is the best snake I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like we'll hyperbolize, but like we're never going to be like, my snake tried to kill me or something. You know what I mean? Like that's just a line that's like, that's just not necessary. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't help. Now it is necessary if you're trying to make your money off YouTube.
Yeah.
And so that is where I guess like on the one level, I understand people doing it because like if YouTube is your income, then and you've looked at your analytics or whatever, and you see that like when you make those titles and thumbnails, like that makes you twice as much money as a video that doesn't have it, then like you're gonna do that because that's how you're making all your money. Luckily, YouTube for us is a vehicle to just get the word out about what we're producing and point people to the snake. You know what I mean? It's not how we make most of the money. So
do you feel like though that aren't those people who are using the scare tactic with a big snake, doing the same thing of selling snakes to the average non-snake person? They're just doing it in the negative flip rather than the positive flip of, they're appealing to the different side. They're doing the same thing in marketing to a group that wouldn't see it, but they're using an entirely different human mechanism to make that connection.
Well, so I've interacted with people. I wouldn't say I'm like friends with them. I know people who do that. Yeah. And their kind of reasoning that I've heard them say is that they are basically like because they get like those videos get so many views, it brings people to the channel. The videos are never actually that. You know what I mean? It is just clickbait. Like the videos never actually have that really happening. Like it'll maybe be like sort of happening, but it's like not, you know what I mean? It's always just
overblown.
Or it's like totally like it's just a lie basically. You know, so their kind of reasoning is that then like once they watch the video, they see how great the snakes are and they see how nice everything is and how they're not scary and they're not mean. And I understand that to a degree, but I guess my thinking is for every, so on YouTube, there's something called a click-through rate, which is basically how, of the people that were shown your thumbnail, how many people actually clicked, right? So like, let's say that your click-through rate is 20%, which would be like a really good click-through rate. That still means 80% of people just saw the thumbnail and didn't actually watch the video. Right. So to me, and I mean, again, I don't know, I'm not trying to like crap on people or whatever, but like to me, I think about those 80% that don't watch the video and all they saw was your thumbnail portraying it negatively. And that's kind of why I won't step over that line. Even if all of our videos are positive, I'm thinking about, okay, well, what if there's a person who doesn't like snakes and they see that video and that makes them not like snakes even more, so they don't click on it, and then it just perpetuates, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what I think about. Because and not to negate, you know, the interest that those people do bring in, because I'm sure that is valid. I'm sure, you know, if you have 2.5 or 3 or whatever million followers on any kind of social media, that's a big impact. And I'm sure a lot of it is people who would not necessarily give two craps about reptiles. But I do also think about the people that just see it and scroll and don't click and at least a bad impression.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, you wonder if they were going to click anyway, even if it was a, you know, positive spin on things.
That's the thing. They might, but it might not have gotten the video might have never done good, so they never showed up on their page to be clicked on in the first place. So there's so many variables.
And I mean, if they weren't going to click on it and they saw what they saw, what they thought they would see if they did click was a negative interaction, perhaps you're just reinforcing what they thought all along anyway. So it may not even be a positive. You know what I mean? Like if they weren't going to click, it doesn't do any justice. Like it's not benign, right? Because they're still seeing it and they're still saying like, see, yep, just like I thought. Yep, that's what it is, right? And it's kind of like, no, it's not. But you know,
I guess my other thing is I'm starting to think about, like, because I do have a small YouTube channel of my own. I just started it in the past year or whatever, and I just hit 1,000 subscribers. So go me.
Nice.
Oh, congratulations.
But nothing compared to like the hundreds of thousands. But you know, I'm always thinking about how can I get people to watch this and make it interesting. But it's like I want people to want to watch it because they're intrigued by how cool the animals are. You know what I mean?
Right,
I just think it's appealing to the wrong sensibilities in people. If you're appealing to like that sensibility of like, ooh, I want to see somebody's arm get cut off, then it's like, I don't know if that's why we want people to be interested in reptiles. You know what I mean? Like, find the people who think that something is cool because it is cool, not because it's scary and gory and horrific or whatever.
Yeah. And if people are coming into reptiles because of scary, gory videos, they're probably not the best people to have.
Because they want to watch like, small animals get killed or something. It's
exactly. Like, that's not cool.
Maybe not who we want to be like really vying for. But.
Well, you've done some really cool videos lately. Your rough scale stuff is pretty sweet. So that's awesome. I had a pair for a brief time, and I'd like to get another pair at some point. They're really cool pythons for sure.
Oh yeah, I love it. Well, now that I've seen that anthill, I might be. Do you work with anthills?
Oh yeah, they're one of my favorite
Well, I might be
species.
hitting you up for one of those because that was super cool, and I think I can justify it since it's so small.
Yeah,
Justin produces nice pygmies. He's got some nice pygmies.
They're fun.
Yeah,
I mean they're a little pain to get started. This year's actually were great. Like they got started right away, so I was really happy about that. I guess to summarize, I think marketing, it can kind of go into dangerous territory when we get people that are, trying to maybe oversell animals, get more money out of them than they're worth, that kind of thing. If they're, pushing things into territory of clickbait or negative, aspects of reptiles just to get people to watch their media, I think kind of in summary, those are the maybe things that you'd maybe watch out if you're developing a marketing strategy, things, care about the animals, kind of like we said at the first, that's the primary thing. So that would be kind of my summary of my
your
things that were on my mind.
For the jury.
My closing statement.
I would agree with that. I think, like we were saying, first and foremost, the quality of the animals should be everybody's priority, whether you're got 2 snakes or 200 or 2,000 or whatever. But I think and this goes for anybody, not just somebody who's trying to make a full-time business, but even if it's just a side business or a hobby, like if you take a little bit of effort into, your presentation, your look, your feel, the way you interact with people, the way you share stuff on the internet, I think it's really only a positive, as long as, like you said, you're honest with with whatever you're saying. You know what I mean? Like, but it's never going to be a negative. And in no industry or world other than things like this, where it's like, or it's like garage rock or something, is like having a professional vibe or like putting money into your business seen as like a bad thing. So it's like, I just find it funny. It's like, it's such it's an eclectic group of people. And I think that because of that, it lends to a lot of opposing viewpoints, which is obviously the whole point of this podcast.
There you go.
But my lasting kind of thought that I would like to leave everyone with is just that if you have a passion, you should want to promote it. You should want to get other people involved, whether it's because it's a really cool species that nobody knows about or not enough people know about, or whether it's because you want to preserve the hobby and the industry and bring more people in and make it, like we were saying, more palatable to the majority of the population. So those are my two main points. I think that if you have a good product that you're proud of, you should promote it to your best ability. You should put your best foot forward, and we should all be trying to, as it was so aptly put, bridge the gap between our weird little corner of the world and the rest of humanity at large.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
I think you've convinced me. I'm siding with you now.
Well done.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's some really good points in there, and I think that's a really important point. That we this is an important thing, and we don't want to lose our rights to be able to do this. And if we have people who are representing us well, like your boss, that
and you,
and you, yeah,
thank you very much.
Yeah, and I mean, just the presence and the professionalism that he and your group has, that's extremely important, and will go a long way to preserving our rights and to make it possible for us to do this for a long time. So. Yeah, thank you.
Do I get an honorary doctorate now?
I don't know if I can grant those, but maybe a Fight Club doctorate. We need a doctor of Fight Club.
I'll hang it on the wall.
Yeah, there you go.
You change Justin's mind, you get a little.
There you go. You can print out a little self-printed thing, put it up on your wall.
Maybe I can mail out little stethoscopes or something. I don't know. I don't know why it's a stethoscope.
Yeah, wrong kind of doctor.
Doctor of reptile. I don't know
I do have to ask, when is the book coming out?
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. I'm working on it.
They just keep asking for pictures. Anybody got more pictures? We need more pictures.
At this point, we need a book. To Australia and take some pictures for y'all.
We need a book.
I wish I could go over to Australia and take some pictures right now. They'd let us in. Yeah, I mean, we're getting very close. We're going through the photo layout now, and it's hard because you always find something else that you need to add. I mean, just the other day I was looking at the chapters and I realized I hadn't edited updated the New Guinea carpet python chapter. So I'm like, oh crap, Eric Burke's gonna have.
I was just gonna say Eric's gonna be so mad at you.
If I didn't update that one, leave that one the same. But
what the heck, dude?
Yeah, so I added a couple pages to that, and we got it all nice and updated. But hopefully it'll be worth the wait. I can pretty much say I think people are going to be happy with this. If they like the first one, this one's going to be awesome.
Honestly, if you just did nothing but change the pictures, I'd probably be like, yes.
and we did. We changed pretty much all the pictures. It's going to be all new pictures. We tried to avoid any captive animals in the natural history chapters, so they're all
I love that because that to me is I want, in my head, when I look at my cage, I'm daydreaming about that's actually I'm looking at Australia or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't want to see it in a tub. I see it in a tub all the time. I need to go eventually. One of these days.
Oh, it's one of the best experiences you'll have. I mean, it's such a great place to herp. And I mean, on the one hand, you have these kind of grand visions of what it's going to be like. Right. And sometimes it's a little bit of a letdown. You're like, really? I'm not seeing anything.
Oh, I mean, that's how I feel just herping locally.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
Oh, it's going to be a great day. And it's nothing.
Yeah. And I mean, definitely there's some days like that, but then there's other days where you're like, oh man, it's just another, knobtail gecko. I'm like, what am I saying? It's a knobtail gecko. I'm getting out of the car and I'm going to look at it, even though I saw, 20 just the last hour or two. So yeah, it can be phenomenal herping and other nights. I mean, we were talking, I was talking to Owen and Rob Stone and Owen McIntyre about, the Doe Rat Road in the Northern Territory. Right. So when we went, it was my second trip. We went with Nick Mutton and Rico Walder, and it was a fantastic year. Peter Birch, it was a great trip. But anyway, we were cruising this road that was recommended, and we saw, all these elapids, night tigers, and then we start hitting the pythons later on at night. We saw a couple, children's pythons. Unfortunately, they'd been hit by cars, but then, an olive and a blackhead. And we're like, this is a great road. We're coming back tomorrow. And then the next day we came back, nothing. We didn't see hardly anything on that road. And that's
But that makes me wonder too, because I'm like, what was it about that night that everything was out? I don't know. Like, I just, my wheels start turning with stuff like that. Like,
I kind of wanted to have that.
Whatever it is.
It's the lunar cycles.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it was a day later. The lunar cycle didn't change much, but
really, Eric Burke's fun.
Yeah. Stop but and that's what Owen and those guys were saying, was like, dude, the Doe Rat Road sucks. We didn't see anything. And I'm like, well, we didn't either one day, but we did another day. The famous Fog Dam. We went one night and we saw nothing. Then we went the following night and saw like 8 water pythons. It's like sometimes things are just hopping and other times they're not. And I wanted to maybe have a topic on here of like, is herping, 90% luck and 10% skill, or the other way around? Can you, because there's some guys that, Utah herpers that find like stuff in ridiculous numbers, and I'm like, how are they finding all these animals like that are really hard to find?
Have you heard, sorry to cut you off, I just watched this documentary, My Octopus Teacher. I don't know if you guys watched
that's
it.
a cool one.
I saw that. I haven't watched it. Okay.
Yeah, well, he was he learned how to like track the octopus, right? Like underwater. So I'm like, maybe these guys, like, people are good at like gecko tracking or something. I don't know. Like, I guess if you did it enough times, you could figure out the little marks in the sand or whatever.
There's definitely skill. And I got kind of schooled by Rico too, because we were, I don't know if you're familiar with Rico Walder.
Unfortunately, but yes.
Yeah. He's fantastic. But unfortunately he passed away, but I like to keep his memory alive, telling stories and things. But we were out there, like, we found a carpet. It was a Darwin carpet in the grounds around our Airbnb. We went out and found it, and we're like just taking pictures and looking at it and stuff. And Rico's there like measuring the temperatures, and he's taking notes, and he's like, where's your notebook? Why are you not writing anything down? I'm like, oh, good point. Why don't I have a temp gun? Why aren't I, And so we, on our last herp trip to Arizona, just this last week, we were playing guess that temperature. I'd tempt the ground and say, okay, what's everybody's guess? And we'd see, and one night was super windy, and like, we're thinking, is it worth even cruising? Like, the winds were like 45 miles an hour. I'd be driving 45 with the wind, and you wouldn't feel any wind out the window. It was pretty crazy. But then we'd stop, and you're almost getting blown into the rattlesnake you're photographing. But we found, 5 or 6 snakes that night. And, I think they know when it's windy, the owls aren't going to be the greatest hunters, so they're maybe safe to come out. So there's a lot of different factors that I think you can learn and,
for sure. I wish
develop skill.
Nothing more than like somebody or a bunch of people probably to like do that with every species and like just figure out like, when are they more likely to come? You know what I mean? Like, just all those different things. Cause I try to do that with my snakes in my house, and it's nothing compared to the wild, like all the variation you get. But it's so interesting to me just to think about what little environmental factors motivate them to do different things. And if only we all could quit our jobs and do that full time. And go
just follow around stuff in the wild.
Exactly. That's what I'm wanting to do during retirement. Just follow a certain group. Well, Frank Reedy's he's that monitor expert guy, kind of revolutionized monitor breeding. Yeah. And he would go out and study Gila monsters. He lived in Tucson area. And so he found a couple sites where there were, a few Gilas, and he actually took us to the site. He blindfolded us on the way in and stuff, like, so he didn't want us to, he didn't blindfold us on the way out. So I think we gained his trust to some extent. I can't remember where it is anyway, but it was like 10 years ago. But we went and he would say, "Oh, look in that crack, or look under that rock," and there'd be like 2 Gilas next to each other. We saw like 5 in an afternoon. Wow. He knew where they hung out. So I do think, just even in your own collection, looking at your animals, getting to know their habits, like, when the lights come on, they come out and bask for, half an hour, 50, an hour, and then they go hide, so learning things, we can learn some things from our captives,
for sure,
that can prepare us for looking
it's
for them in the
closest
wild.
I'm gonna get right now, so I'm just gonna keep watching them and making notes. So
exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a lot of fun, and you brought up some really great points, and got some really good hits in there. So.
She came prepared.
She following the Rico method.
Yeah. So if people wanted to check you out, Summer, like the stuff you do, how might they get in touch with you, or you want to put your stuff out there for people?
Yeah, for sure. You can get me on Instagram. It's at Girl with Scales. You can check me out on YouTube. Just Girl with Scales. I am on Facebook. My name is Summer Grace Mitchell. There might be another one or two of me, but you'll hopefully find me eventually. It says something about snakes in my profile picture, so you should know. And then if you want to check out what I do for my full-time job, you can look at Canova. So I'm not on the I'm not the host, but I am always behind the camera. So any of those videos and a lot of the social media posts and stuff is secretly me.
Nice. Cool. Now, are your videos under that as well?
My videos are under, my personal videos are under Girl with Scales. So that's where I cover more like educational topics or kind of the species that I keep. And then Canova is totally ball pythons.
Perfect. Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Well,
thanks for being on.
Definitely a great fight club. I loved it.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me. It was great to be on, and just honored to have been asked, and had a great time kind of bouncing ideas back and forth. So
nice.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear, but my dog Ruby says, "Good job."
Thank you, Ruby.
Yes,
I value her opinion.
Oh my gosh!
All right. Well, I'd encourage everybody to go out and check out all the different podcasts on the Morelia Pythons Network. There's been some really fun shows lately, and I think we're going to talk about the trip for the Patreon folks for the herp trip. So if you want to hear about our Arizona herp trip with the MP crew, I think we're doing that Sunday night. So should be fun to get together and reminisce about all the stuff we did over the last week. So thanks again for listening, and we appreciate you listening to Reptile Fight Club, and we'll see you next week for another episode.
Fight Club.